Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, Heidi's Corner. It's me, Heidi. Now, on the agenda tonight is approaching transgender identity in Europe. And joining me tonight is Trans-Atheist, also known as Borg Skeptic. Could you go and introduce yourself? Many watching might not know who you are.
Yeah, so I'm a bog skeptic or trans-atheist, as I was once known. I run a small YouTube channel. I cover ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, ex-cult material, and just general atheism topics as well over on my channel. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. That'll be absolutely great.
And the link to her channel should be in the description box down below. And if it isn't, I'll update the description box up post stream. If it's not there, my bad, sorry. Anyway, this is the first show of a season 2 on my channel. As you probably have noticed, I was away for a bit over a month due to a number of reasons I won't go into publicly. Anyway, I figured that what I had last autumn and from started, I think, late August, early or thereabouts, and what I had was a season 1, which included mostly of interviews and talk shows with a guest of a certain topic of this person's field of speciality, such as Bob the Science Guy with regards to internal medicine, conspiracy cats with school, etc. Now, this season 2 will be more of a news broadcast when it talking about contemporary news around the world regarding LGBT plus, and I will have I aim for having a guest every time I talk about the news. If I don't, I'll come on alone, but these news will always be from the past probably a month. And today I will be dissecting an article. I'll be dissecting an article from Euronews.com. It's from bit over a year ago, from 2019, and I'll be dissecting this article and giving my 2 cents with Trans-Atheist. Now, I'll bring up the article that's on the screen. Yes, I'm apparently having a bit of technical issues here with bringing up the. If you'd excuse me for a moment. It's just that I. Just me are stupid. There we have it. There we have it. Now. Whoops. Sorry about that. Anyway, I think it doesn't. Sorry about that. While
Do you need me to share
fix it-
screen?
Excuse me?
Do you need me to share screen?
Yeah, please. Yes, do please. Because me a dumb. Oh, there's Cranium 99.
Find
Hello.
which one it is.
Hello to you,
I will-
Cranium 99.
There it goes.
There we go. Okay. There
You
we
wanted
have,
the map,
yes.
didn't you?
So here we have it. We have on the map, we have the European countries in red when it comes to legal gender reassignment. The countries in red require a mental health diagnosis. That means you will have to go through all kinds of testing, etc., by mental health professionals in Finland. That means a psychologist and psychiatrist. So, who then the psychiatrist will then, or will not, will not, depending on your case, give you a diagnosis of you being transgender, and with this and a number of other papers, you can then have your legal gender reassigned to official documents. And it's saddening to see that there are so few countries with the possibility of, or not the government not requiring a diagnosis of biomedical professionals. We have Norway, Denmark, Ireland, Belgium, and I'm not sure if Luxembourg is there, but France, Portugal, and Greece. And it has been an issue. It still is. It always has been an issue, because it's not, being trans is not a mental health issue. It's not. You're not. It's as if you have to be mentally diseased to get your legal gender marker fixed. It's really, really, really horrible, in my opinion. What kind of mental health sort of investigate? What is required when it comes to mental health professional performing tests on you in the UK as of right now?
Well, so in the UK we have it's basically a 2-year psychiatric evaluation that you have to go through.
Okay.
So you can change your name before that. So you can change your name by default. That's fine, and you can use a preferred gender on documents. But obviously, that doesn't count for birth certificate, IDs, that sort of thing. So you've got to go through a 2-year psych evaluation, which is quite in depth. You've got to go into every aspect of your life from childhood all the way up until present day, and it is very thorough. So they will ask you all, like, the personal information, all the personal details, things that you might not want to share. You have to share absolutely everything, otherwise they will not recommend you for for the diagnosis.
Exactly, and going deep, digging a bit deeper into this article. This article was written by Anne Fleischmann and Luke Hurst back in 2019.
Bring that back up
It
to
was
the top
spot.
there.
Excuse me. Yes.
Yeah.
Germany's first openly transgender politician has called the abolition of countries transsexuellen Gesetz, the transsexual law, which she describes as degrading. It stipulates that to change the first name and gender, they must talk to psychologists and a judge. I mean, come on, what does
Yeah,
a judge have to do with anything in this regard?
exactly. It's gender is one of those things that it's an identity, and like any other identity, it's something that only you can decide. It's
Exactly.
the fact that you have to get legal representation and medical representation. It's sort of, in that sense, it's fueling the bigots out there, the people who
Exactly.
say that it is a medical condition, that it is a mental illness. It's just fueling their arguments.
As this Tessa Gansera said, I do not think that any human being, any state, or and certainly any judge has the right to determine the sex of another human being. She's absolutely right. A
Yeah.
judge is the last person to do such thing. I mean, judges, they are experts in law and the legislation in their respective country. Nothing. They're not medical experts unless they happen to be a doctor who became then turned their back on medicine and became a chill out lawyer. So but it's they don't have any medical expertise or psychological expertise, as far as I can tell, when it comes to legal to studying law. Um, and then after her tweet, I won't even try and get to sort out her tweet in German, but here it is again. What I just said previously, that many European countries require a mental health diagnosis to get the official records changed. It's as stated previously, it's just horrendous.
Yeah. And even then, it's very hard pushed in certain countries, like in the UK, to even get your birth certificate changed at that point. So you can go as far as getting all your IDs changed and your official documents changed, but you're still always going to have that birth certificate, which is in your birth gender.
Yeah, and that's something that shouldn't really be a thing in modern times, I think. And there's Kiana and Russell from ILGA Europe that that she they are he she they whatever. Sorry about that, Kiana. And I don't know what your pronouns are, but I'll go for they. What they told Euronews is that it's false. That forced medical and psychiatric exams can be classified as torture or inhuman treatment. I mean, forced medical exams. What that reminds you of many different
Mm.
events in the past. I will not discuss on this channel, but Kianan is absolutely right. It's torture and or inhuman treatment. And I really don't understand as to why this is still a thing in 2020. Was a thing in 2019 and still is in 2021. Why do you think it's still such a huge thing, even in our times?
Pure ignorance, I would put it down to. It's still something which is, I mean, when you look back through history and you look at, other movements, not just the trans rights movement, you look at women's rights, you look at homosexual rights. It's always due to ignorance. and it seems like society moves extremely slowly in progress in these areas. And a lot of it I could probably, with my background and everything, I'd probably put it down to religion, because especially within Europe, and when you look at some of the countries that do have these more bigoted views around transsexuality, a lot of them are extremely religious countries and still have a lot of ingrained religious institutions within that country.
Yeah, indeed. It seems to me as if, yeah, yeah. I won't go into religion on this channel,
Mm.
but at least too much. I'll try to avoid it. But it it just horrendous, and I think I just agree with Kian, and we have we just go a bit down. We and
Run it further down,
it's
or
yeah, and Kianan said that it compared it said referred to it as a human rights violation
mm.
that
it,
affects very
yeah,
yeah yeah we had the if we go further down, two European examples. There's the
yeah.
UK. So could you further elaborate on what these three scenarios would mean in real world practice? What would these these three scenarios, how would they come about?
Well, scenario one is the generalized scenario, that pretty much everyone in the UK in my position would have to meet the criteria of this scenario. This basically sets out that you have to have 2 years of psychiatric evaluation. You have to have lived in your assigned gender for 2 years without any deviation, and also you're going to have to then pay a fee on top of that, so £140 or €151, to be able to get that to get the gender recognition certificate. Now, the gender recognition certificate itself has some controversy behind it as well, as it sort of gives you it gives you rights, but it doesn't give you the rights that you would want. So it doesn't give you the same rights as, say, a woman. It would only give you a certain set of rights as a trans person.
Mm-hmm.
And as a gender recognition certificate, a lot of people view it in the same sort of light as someone who's left a psychiatric ward and has a letter of sanity or a certificate of sanity. It's people look at that gender recognition certificate and think, well, it's almost like saying that I have a mental health condition and now I've been ticked off as sane, which obviously doesn't help at all in general society.
It doesn't make you, but the fact that you've been, someone has officially stated that yes, you are indeed transgender, but that how the fudge monkey brain does that make you crazy or psychiatrically ill?
Yeah, it
I
doesn't.
really don't get it. It doesn't compute.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of problems with the system that we have over here, especially as well, because gender identity isn't like binary. You can't like put an either or sort of scenario onto it, which the way the system is at the moment, it feels like that. So when you go down for the psychiatric evaluations, there's sort of like an expectation from them that if you were born male and you're going in as a, to get the gender dysphoria diagnosis, there's an expectation that you're going to be female, like fully female, like round to the, they sort of expect you to be, wearing dresses and makeup, and basically they expect you to go in looking like a drag queen.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
They're expected to be on the extreme, so it's very hard in that respect. The first time I went down, it didn't happen this time, but the first time I went down, I got a psychiatric nurse who was evaluating me, and she was basically telling me that I had to be in a full-time relationship
Why?
with a man to be able
Why?
to, before she would sign off for me,
Why? Why would you
to
have to
show
be?
that I had the sexuality of a female. That's what
Oh,
her
for
words were,
fuck.
and
How
I
the
was like,
fuck?
"What?"
How in the fudge monkey brain does that compute that all women must be straight?
Yeah, exactly.
Why? Why would you have to be straight? Why would all women have to be straight? So, I mean, this nurse must know, so must have personally met someone at some point in her life, a woman who's who's not straight. Does that make that woman
Mm,
any less of a woman, any less of a cis woman? No, it does
exactly.
not. No.
No, they seem to have got rid of that now because uh, I've gone down again, and I've been, I've got the diagnosis now, but it just shows that there is still some, even within the system itself, there's still some bigoted people in there that,
That
bring
just
their
don't
own
wanna,
personal,
yeah, they just
yeah,
don't wanna sign off on that because they want it to be cis, straight, and binary.
yeah,
Everything outside that doesn't exist, and even if it did, it's more. It sometimes it feels as if it's, even if they know it exists, it's like they'll just put fingers in their ears and go la la la,
yeah,
as if it didn't exist.
yeah,
It
and
it's
they also have
horrific.
a thing as well where they expect you. So it's not just that you've got to be in your preferred or gender that you've assigned yourself for 2 years. You also have to have been working for that period as well. So if there is other reasons like disabilities or other mental health issues
Mm.
that have stopped you from working, or you just can't get a job because there's not enough jobs for everybody in the modern day and age, then there's another issue there as well, because then they won't
Mm.
sign off on that because you must have been working, so they can contact your employers and
Yeah.
get a second opinion that you actually have been living as a as your preferred gender.
Yeah. Due to some, hang on. I think we were just buffering for a moment. I took off the screen. We were buffering. Those watching, could you tell us in the chat if we were buffering just a moment ago? While we wait for the few to answer it if we were buffering a moment ago.
Hmm.
Anyway, it's just mind-boggling as to how and why you'd have to be uh, straight. I mean,
Yeah.
when I went to the uh, I went through the process. I and the evaluation period. Got okay. No buffering. Okay, excellent. It was just it seemed to be as if it was buffering.
Yeah, StreamYard does that sometimes.
No, it looked to me as if like that on YouTube.
Ah,
So anyway, where was I? Yes, when I went through my evaluation period, uh, but yes, so when I went through my evaluation period, this was many years ago, starting sometime between 2012 or 2012, I think, starting from January 2012. So it's been 9 years. So back then, here, they were pretty much just asking about something regarding my sex life. Of
mm,
what kind. It was something along the lines of, do you have an active sex life? If so, what kind of stuff do you do? Is it with a man, woman, or both? Or that was the sort of questions I got, and
and
all of
what
us
has that got to do
got.
with it? It's
Uh, it it had to do. It had something. I'm not sure whether or not it it's it is still the case that these questions are still asked from people who go there now. There are only two clinics in Finland who are allowed to do this sort of stuff. I'm not sure whether these questions are asked, but back then it was just weird that they were asking about my sex life. Uh, it 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 had nothing to do with whether or not I even have one. It's weird. As a as it is it was either Kianan or this uh, Kianan Russell or Tessa Kansere who said something who that is way too intrusive. These
mm,
questions or these sort of, shall I say, investigations, and
yeah.
it in that regard it is a human rights violation. It's not. It's because it's so private.
Yeah, it's like
And yeah, it's so. I mean, sure it's private, poking into uh, the psyche of a person trying to find something wrong with this person that so that they wouldn't have to write this off as a trans person, but some other sorry, some other crazy person,
yeah.
and it felt as if they just don't want to give the go ahead to get all the paperwork done.
Now, I've been to evaluations for actual mental health issues as well. So schizophrenia and bipolar being two of the ones that I've been under psych evaluation for many years. And they don't ask you about sex life. That doesn't come into it in
No,
normal mental health problems. So I don't see why it's necessary within, within gender dysphoria, why you would need to know that information. Um, and I mean, maybe the question, well, how, what is your sexual identity? As in, are you straight, gay, or are you, asexual? That's I can understand that because that's on a lot of forms for many medical stuff now. Um, but delving into it, that's that's what happens behind closed doors. Happens behind closed doors, surely.
exactly. It's no one else's business, as long as it's consensual. It's as long as it's two consenting people
Exactly.
and two or more consenting people. Yeah, I just don't get it. It sometimes it feels as if it's these pe- people's interest is just a sneak peek into the trans people's trans people's sex lives and what it's like. It's sometimes it felt as if those those who designed the questions and the forms were the the perverted ones, not me.
Mm.
But
It's
that's how it goes sometimes, and it's really really weird.
it's a sign of the age that we live in, though, isn't it? Because it's all about form filling. It's all about data. It's all about
Yeah,
accumulating information on people. It's not just with what we're talking about tonight, but it's with every area of life. You can't do anything without them trying to find out a little bit more about you, trying to, store a little bit more information on you somewhere.
yeah, and then we have these huge hacks, and then kaboom.
Yeah.
But
It's,
that's quite besides the point.
yeah, I think
Um,
we were wanting to. Yeah, so the before we move on, because you did ask about the other scenarios,
oh yes,
and now I don't see the other two scenarios don't fit with me, my situation, so I don't know too much about them other than what's I've heard from other people who've. So I did know someone who'd gone through scenario two, and they had been married earlier on in their life, and even though the divorce scenario two still fit with their situation, so they had to go through 6 years of psych evaluations
wow,
before being
that's
accepted,
crazy.
and the excuse that was given to them was because they had baggage, because they had lived as had been in a marriage as a man.
Right,
Um, they had baggage now, so and not only that, something that's not written here, um, but was the case in this person's scenario, was because they had been married uh, for a certain amount of time. They had to go to to their ex-wife and
right.
get their 2 cents on whether or not this person was the gender that they were saying they preferred to be.
Why is it like retroactively? They could have been divorced for like 20 or 30 years,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
this
but
they might have not even have known where the other one lives if they didn't have kids. They might not have known whether each other even lives, whether they've changed their name. Yeah, here in Finland, it's quite a bit more. Well, nowadays, you we wouldn't need a spousal consent anymore with regards to this
hmm,
uh, legal recognition because we got the same-sex marriage legislation in action 4 years ago, I think. So that that the requirement that they had to have um, the spousal written spousal consent because the marriage would have um, changed into civil partnership with which
hmm,
had less legal rights, and the civil partnership would have turned into a full blown marriage. Hence, they had to get the spousal consent to get the spouse's rights spousal marital rights changed, but now that we have the same-sex marriage, they that was pointless
Mm.
because everyone had the same rights when it comes to marriage, so
Yeah.
they removed it. But it wasn't it did happen so that the spouse actually refused to give the permission and hence prevented the transgender spouse to get the legal recognition until they
Mm.
divorced.
Yeah, so that's what struck me as odd in my friend's situation was the fact that they were already divorced, and they were still sort of not asking for the ex-spouse's permission, but asking for their take on whether or not they thought that my friend was had gender dysphoria or not,
Uh-huh.
which was a marriage which had taken place like 10 years earlier.
Yeah,
Had ended like 10 years earlier. So,
right,
why they were asking. They gave the excuse that they had kids in this marriage.
right,
And they needed to know whether or not it was going to be, it was going to affect the mental stability of the children.
right.
But the children were like 16 and 20, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That if they were like 1 and 3, okay,
Yeah, could understand.
or 5 or 7, that's different. But if they were 16 and 20, they would have been adults at that point.
Yeah.
A 16-year-old isn't legally an adult or not physically, not quite there yet, but almost there, in
Past the age
physically
of
and
understanding.
legally. Physically and legally, 16-year-old is almost there, but not quite. But still, a 16-year-old has the mental capabilities of processing this kind of thing like an
Hmm.
adult, for the most part, I think.
Well, yeah. And
All
in this
16-year-olds,
situation, the 16-year-old was actually already calling his dad mum. So
yeah.
he was
If
completely
this
happy
was
with the
indeed the
situation.
case, if this was indeed the case, well, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous, I say to the NHS. Yes.
Yeah, there's still a lot of room. There's still a lot of changes that need to be made over
Yeah.
here,
Isn't
just like
there?
a lot of countries.
Yeah. Isn't there always? Anyway, I think we could go to what is the situation in Greece. So I'll take this up on full screen, like so. Like so, in Greece, 18 years old or older, if not parental committee consent, younger than 17 but older than 15, and additional interdisciplinary committee. Could you please explain to a non-native speaker what an interdisciplinary committee would usually mean?
Into this, well, we don't have that over here. I'm not 100% certain what that is. I'm guessing it would be similar to what the situation in Germany, where you need a judge
Oh yeah, could be.
to preside over the thing.
And
But I
then
think
it's just under there. Uh, Different kind of specialist doctors, a social work and a social
yeah,
worker. Yeah,
endocrinologist,
and cannot be
pediatric
married,
surgeon.
just like in the UK and what we had in Finland up until March of 2017.
Oh well, actually, I think they actually do have that over here because that's what the person who does the psychiatric evaluation just does the evaluation and then gives their recommendation, and
Oh
then
yeah,
it's a committee who sits over it. We just don't call
yeah,
it interdisciplinary
right.
committee.
And then, oh yeah, and the medical diagnosis of person's mental health is not required, uh, but they must explain their reason for the decision in person to a court. Well, it's basically it's not a requirement to have a psychiatric diagnosis, but if you don't, I what I get from this is that if you don't have one, it would make your life a bit more difficult,
Mm,
and you'd have a bit more difficult time trying to explain yourself to the courts, or primarily the judge, as to what what the what the hell this is all about, because the psychiatric the mental health diagnosis would, or the paper from the mental health professional would better explain the situation to someone, a
mm.
judge with a legal degree who doesn't know. That kind of person doesn't know anything
Yeah, exactly. And I
about
mean, it
this
just
kind of
shows
stuff.
how bigoted our society is in a lot of countries still. How
Yeah.
medieval in a sense that we still are. I mean, this would be analogous to like a woman having to go to a court
Hmm.
and ask for permission from a judge to wear trousers. It which we would view as crazy. Well, why would you need a judge's permission for that?
Yeah.
But it it's a very similar sort of thing. This is a decision which only one person can take, the subject. It's got nothing to do with medical, professionals or judges.
Exactly. Some people who really don't know what they're talking about, or let alone what they are being told by a member of the public, a person who is trans.
Yeah. I know
Anyway,
the rule there as well is one bit that I don't think we mentioned, but transgender people in Greece who wish to change their gender cannot be married.
yes,
I think that is just that's just crazy.
some
What
of these,
possible reason can they have for putting a law like that in place? I mean, surely marriage is between two consenting adults.
yeah, exactly. It's just batshit crazy. This whole thing. Um, yeah, I think we'll go just maybe a bit further down.
Mm.
So that an expensive change. Um,
Got there?
yeah. So in the process, it in Germany, yeah, but changing such process costs approximately 4,000 euros. That's quite a
That's a
that's
steep
quite a
price.
pile of money. That's and as I understand it, this was just getting his name and legal gender marker changed. It was just and only the name and legal marker. 4,000 euros. That's just batshit crazy. I
That's
mean,
ridiculous. I mean, what would the application costs be? Like €100, maybe maximum,
yeah, and
and for actually processing the information needed. But uh, that's
yeah,
just crazy. Four
I really
thousand.
don't understand as to where all that money goes. Where does the Lucas pays that 4,000 euros? Where does that where does that money go? Because it does not take 4,000 euros to
Mm.
process his application. There's no way.
Probably
No
goes into the
way.
pockets of the same idiots that freaking
Yeah,
put the
that
price tag on it in the first
yeah.
place.
I mean, if you want to change, I if I remember correctly, changing the gender marker didn't cost me anything here in Finland. Changing my names, legally changing my names, cost something. Maybe I'm not sure
Mm.
if even that cost me anything, because here you
Yeah,
can change your legal first names uh, once free of charge,
yeah.
and I hadn't
In
so it's quite possible that I didn't pay
yeah,
a penny.
in the UK, we have we have a thing known as DPOL, so you can change your first name, middle name, last name. You can change your title,
Mm.
free of charge in some respects. So you're allowed to like literally write on a piece of paper, I hereby change my name from this to this, and as long as you have two witnesses to sign it, that is technically a legal document. So you can do it free of charge. If you want to get it official, like uh, done with a lawyer present, a solicitor present,
Uh-huh.
so you get the legal certificate of DPOL, and it costs about £15, which will be about what 20 25
20 euros
euros.
or so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, so
It's not
it's
all that
cheap to
bad.
do, and
Yeah,
you can do that as many times as you want in your life. So
yeah. We have some sort of a limit here. It. I think it's the fourth time or something goes through what's called a name committee or
mm,
something. It at the is a government thing,
yeah,
and it's relatively easy here in Finland as
yeah,
well. It's not that it's not all that difficult, but knowing that it costs about 20 euros in the UK and maybe 50 euros, both legal gender and the first names, plus plus what you have to pay to get all your new ID and driver's license and such. That can be a few hundred euros, but
yeah.
that's not the cost of getting the legal process done,
Oh no,
which
of course
is
not. That's
not it's ridiculous to charge for
yeah.
4,000.
Technically, all of that isn't related to
That's unrelated.
being transsexual. Like, any one change in the name would have to go through that process.
Yeah, and what Lucas is saying that points out that they tend to get they tend to get good legal aid for referring to the going to courts,
Mm,
uh, but it's based on family income, and if your parents have enough money but agree with you, you can't go through with it. It's
Yeah,
quite.
that's ridiculous.
It's just horrible. Yeah, and here it's Ganserer saying that she didn't go through with the procedure of officially to officially change her name and sex because she doesn't want to. I don't want to. I will not stand before a judge to put up with the most intimate personal questions about my early childhood experiences, sexual preferences, and partners, so that he can decide for this state that I am a woman I have always been. She said
Yeah,
in sessions of Bavarian state parliament. The first name she was given at birth is displayed. It's
exactly.
it's it's really sad, you know.
I mean,
It's really
imagine
sad.
if you made biological men and women have to do that. Like, before they can, before they turn 18, or on when they turn 18, they have to go into a courtroom and put forward, answer a load of questions, intimate questions about experiences and sexual preferences and who they've had as sexual partners throughout their life before they're allowed to be before a judge decides what gender they're going to be as an adult. Uh,
Exactly.
I mean, that would be against the human rights if you did that with biological men and women, and yet it's just viewed as normal when it comes to trans people. That's
It's just horrendous.
mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling. And why is your sexual life anyone else's business?
Exactly.
And as long as it's consensual, why is it anyone else's business?
I
Because
mean,
it isn't, and
in
and
my
it should never be.
situation, I told them that I was asexual. The next question, right? It should have ended there, right? But the next question was, "What do you watch porn?" And I was thinking,
Why would you watch porn?
why would what I watch it have anything to do with
Yeah,
gender and identity? What?
it's weird indeed. Before we go into the last paragraph of the article, I'd like to. I just really have to. I must address this comment from Mr. Gerardo. It's not the government's responsibility to pay anything in your life. That's your issue. Then, look, why, if government. I'm not going. Will not go into politics. I refuse to do that. But I will go to politics per se. But I will go into social politics if necessary. And if it's not your government's um, responsibility to help you if you need uh, your yourself or your family, why would you even stop paying taxes then?
Hmm. I think there's an ethical issue though on what on the point that he's making there. So I agree it's not the government's responsibility to pay for it, but ethically, it's not the government's responsibility to demand that you pay for something which you don't need to pay for. I mean, it's gender identity. It's your identity. It's who you are. You shouldn't have to pay to be who you are.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And I hope Mr. Gerardo will agree with us that we shouldn't have to pay for. Okay. 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 Now, now that this is done with, we shall continue. We have the last paragraph here. Being transgender no longer on HWO's list of mental illnesses. The World Health Organization has removed transgender health issues from its mental illnesses list of mental illnesses in 2018, a move welcomed by transgender community. This is wonderful.
This one triggered me. Really triggered me. This one.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, the trans community has been demanding this for years,
Yeah.
and I guess all sensible medical professionals probably have as well.
This was like we've been asking for a piece of cake for years. They finally give us our piece of cake, and then they go and kick us in the balls. It's
indeed, and it's the new categorization is a possible model for all those who talk about transsexual bodies in the same breath as yeah you can really read it there, but it's not a mental health issue, but it's not anything compared to such things really that can be seen there. I refuse to read that kind of stuff out loud on my channel.
yeah. Well,
But
we can just categorize it as
I'll just take it from after that. It will take years for this new version of International Classification of Diseases, ICD-11, to be implemented globally, with some countries such as United States of America indicating that they have no short-term intention to implement the new system, Russell said. How am I not surprised?
I mean, that just says it all,
the
doesn't
United
it?
States of America.
International Classification of Diseases.
Yes.
Why would you even... you take it away from mental health. Oh, okay, we now accept it's not a mental health condition, but it must be a disease then. It's like, what? I mean...
It was previously in the current system used the ICD-10. It's in ICD-10. It's in under category F, which is psychiatric diseases, as of right now.
Yeah.
So it's still as of right now, but in ICD-10, it's still it's a disease, but not a mental disease. It's certain other dysfunction.
It's like no medical professionals willing to admit that it's just an identity.
Yeah,
they have to either classify it as mental health or classify it as a disease or put it in the same boat as perversive behavior.
Yeah.
It's
horrendous.
How are we ever going to expect society to accept us for who we are when you've got medical professionals and governments who are just unwilling to to treat it as the issue that it is, not instead of putting these labels on it.
I just don't get it, It's why would you still all activists and represent and employees of these LGBT plus organizations have demanded the demedicalization of this issue of transgender people, or this entire transgender issue, or issue, if you want to call it that. Don't call it a medical issue. Call it variety in human beings, something else. It's not a disease. Most, if not all, pretty much every single trans person I've met is more or less psychiatrically okay. Some have had and still do have depression, dysphoria, etc. But it doesn't have to have anything to do with
Of course
being
not.
trans. It has to do with it's the society causing it's society causing circumstances in which people get depressed.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be related to transsexuality either. I mean,
And
transsexuals
most of the time
can
it
still
isn't.
have other mental health problems, just like any other human being, that are completely unrelated to the gender.
Exactly, and it's horrendous. I just don't get why it's so difficult. Still, in the article they made clear. I can't remember who it was in the article, but made it clear that it's stigmatizing. The whole
It is.
this this issue that we saw in the article, or the issues rather in plural, but we had it. Someone in the article said that it's stigmatizing. Yes, it's stigmatizing. That's one. That's one of the things causing depression to trans people and non-binary and others who are anyone who is not cis, because it's been made medical. It's been made clear to the general public that these people are mentally diseased, and that causes all kinds of issues in this person's everyday life. It's horrible, isn't it? If you really think about it.
No, it is. I've lived in areas all my life where I can definitely attest to the stigmatization of it. I can't do things in life that I really want to do. Like going to the swimming baths, for instance, because I can't go to that swimming bath and go into that pool without without parents taking the children out of the pool, thinking, I'm some pervert or something, simply because of my gender.
It's still the stigma caused by it.
And not to be able to go like shopping and things like that, because you can't go and use the public restroom, because of your gender. You've got to use, or you're expected to use, the disabled toilets instead. Because people are thinking it's some sort of disability. The only thing about it which is disabling is people's attitudes towards you. It's not a disability to have. It's unless
crippling.
The society is crippling you.
Yeah, and that's one of that would be one of the issues here. Well, the I think the big issue here that was brought up by the article, that having such high costs, was it 4,000 euros or so,
4,000 euros.
in Germany, having to pay that just to get your gender marker changed and your name, and just that 4,000 euros, and I really didn't catch from the article how long that article would take to get that changed. And although if you really think about it, it's going to court, and it's just horrible.
Yeah.
If you'd excuse me, I have slight technical issues here. I'll put. We'll be right back. Hello, we're back. I had issues with my chair. I had to get my lights back on the chair. So, it's mind-boggling. Still having to see and read these things happening in Europe. I would imagine seeing these somewhere else, but not in Europe. But as we saw in the article, it's still going forward bit by bit. You know, if you really think about this, the issue we had there is in Germany, that it costs a ton of money, 4,000.
That's a lot of money.
Even though, however, if you go really into it, it wasn't possible in 20 years ago. Well, stuff like that wouldn't have been possible 20, 30 years ago. We've had progress, yes, but it's way too slow. Because I would really assume that things would be a whole lot better now, but things are better. I had a chat on my channel with lovely people with whom I've talked about how horrible things were back in the day. For example, with Susan, what things were like in the 60s. And 70, up until around the time of the Stonewall riots and such. But hey, and there's Jenny, with whom I talked about being trans in 70s and 80s and so on. I think even though the situation sucks, like we read in this article, that it varies. Of course, it varies, as we saw the map, but that map doesn't show the whole story.
No.
Fortunately, things are better than what they seem on that map. And I believe they will get better. They will get better. I have no reason to doubt that.
Well, we're starting to see an emergence of not touching into the politics, obviously, but we're starting to, see an emergence of a lot more political figures who happen to be trans now around the world, which is a sign that things may be it's starting to change.
For example, there's Tessa Ganserer, this German lady, is somewhat of a high note politician, I think.
And there's an American, the first trans senator, isn't it, or trans congressman in America now?
Yes, we do. Yeah. I think there was something in the papers a while back here in Finland. It's hard, surprising to think that such positive news come from the darling United States of America, which was actually mentioned in the article when it comes to the World Health Organization bit towards the end, that they won't be implementing the system in coming years. But hey, things will go forward regardless, and Euro news is quite big news site anyway. So if they write about this stuff, that in my opinion speaks volumes. That speaks volumes in a way that there is more to come, and and there's probably, most likely, there's a lot more to come, and there there are certain articles I would like to go through with someone on this channel, but hopefully with you, but if not, with someone else. But this would be, so there are a few articles here I would love to go through.
Well, I'm always willing. If you ever need me to come on again, that's absolutely fine.
Yes. Anyway,
to help out.
Now we have gone through this article. If we don't get questions from our two viewers now in a moment, I think we'll be calling this one an evening.
I think we've done a comprehensive job.
Yes, I truly hope so, that others will think the same. Anyway, those who are watching now, I know one who's watching. Anyway, those who are watching the replay, if the link to Trans-Atheist's channel isn't during the stream, I will add it later. In the description box below, there is, as I said, link to Trans-Atheist's channel. There is my channel email address, and there are links to two of the Discord servers that I run. There's my channel's Discord server. There's a link down below, as well as the LGBT plus safe space server on Discord that I also run. Now, I think since we have no questions, I think we will call it a day. Thank you very much for watching. Please tune back in later.